Welcome to Voice Active Kindness, where we talk about things while doing a thing. Today we'll be playing Plants vs. Zombies, the easiest game for me to play because I played it when I was very young, and it's a very comforting game. But today we'll be talking about and honestly, it hasn't really been brought up that much because most games have a lot better restrictions that prevent these things from happening, which is good. It's good, but sometimes some games take a completely different route, and we'll explain those too. Believe it or not, multiplayer is definitely a staple in the explanation of that. But I just want to say, like, subscribe, chat, call me out, tell me I'm crazy, tell me I'm not crazy, but more importantly, make sure to tell your friends that there really is someone out there talking about a game while playing a game. That's insane. Voice Active Kindness, YouTube, Twitch, maybe Spotify if I get bored. Alright, so let's actually talk. The toxicity of a player. What does toxic mean? Well, toxic in actual definition is something that, well, let's just say basic or non-chemist out there. It's something that is ill to your health, ill to your mental health. In this instance, someone toxic is relentlessly bashing you online. This can be done through direct or indirect. Direct meaning like, oh, maybe they're like talking on chat like, oh, yada yada yada, you stink at this, oh, you're like the same proficiency as my mom, like my grandmother or something like that. And that's one way to do it, but there are other ways too. So when I think toxic, we gotta find another game. When I think toxic, I think someone in this game, particularly, I think someone who abuses the game to win. Toxic doesn't mean you use it to win, but I usually go to that. That's normally called griefing, like causing grief in game, which is one way to rule things. But I usually think of toxic as someone who wants to win, but that's not true. Someone who wants to win is usually a griefer or like a tryhard, clutcher. I haven't heard that term in a while. When I played Rainbow Six Siege, I used to call toxic competition wall pushers, and the reason why is because if you did really good in Rainbow Six Siege, and you like were really like you got like someone who was much higher than you in rank, then they would like start going crazy and be a lot better. Like in the third round, usually we're gonna play the toxic P because Lamo. So, right. So, right. Toxic. Right. Rainbow Six Siege, yeah, wall pushers. I tried coining the phrase, but I didn't stream back then, and I still, honestly, I haven't played Six Siege in a while because like they added like so many characters. It's like they took out the wonder of the game, kind of. That sounds a little toxic myself. You could be toxic to a game, by the way. Toxic fans is another thing we'll talk about, but for now we're talking about toxic match players. So I'm going to use Rainbow Six Siege as an example, and we're going to use this game eventually. But in Rainbow Six Siege, a toxic player was usually a competitive player, someone who went into ranked with more than just the mentality of like, oh, I'm going to win. It's like, I'm going to make sure you don't score any points, and I do very, very well. At least that's what I experienced. When I played for the first time Rainbow Six Siege, I was met with a very large community that cared a lot. But from what I remember, my first like really bad instance was someone abused the like window on this one like house and shot me as soon as I got in view. And you could argue, most people would argue that that's not toxic. That's just like playing smart. But I mean, I didn't even get to move off the game. You know? There's a difference between like, I think that in Rainbow Six Siege, if you could see someone running out the window, you should at least, I think perhaps maybe it's not terrible to let them through. But of course there have been times when I've given into that, which is a toxic thing. We're giving a brief example of toxic before we actually move on to a definition. So, he just killed me, guy. Right. So when we refer to toxic, we refer to someone who's not playing the game correctly. They're like playing it too competitively, or they're playing it to have fun at someone else's expense. That's the true definition. Having fun at their own expense. Like, there's a trick, and we're gonna lose 6 Siege one last time. There's a trick in 6 Siege. If you go up against a wall, and you do this a bunch of times, it'll start DDoSing the game, which is like crashing the game. And that was a big problem early on. I think they fixed it, but I particularly remember a couple of my teammates doing it just to mess with the game and being like, just go in, you won't get any problems. Which, you know, thinking back, yeah, it's terrible. Where's my guys? I always forget how loud it is. Anyway. Another reason that I bring up 6 Siege is because of its fan base. It's not very toxic. I've never really heard Rainbow Six Siege outcry against its own game. When a fan base is toxic, it means that whatever the developers do isn't enough. My favorite game series, Fallout, has been accused of that a couple of times. Where like Bethesda, they're like, oh, you say Bethesda doesn't make anything good. And that's because you just want the old games. And yeah, you're right. There are definitely, I've met a couple people who just only care about the older games. That's a toxic fan base, one that's like not willing to do anything or play anything. I would argue that Fallout 4 received a bit of toxic reviews. I like the game, but I'll admit like there were some shortcomings with the story, but I never did like say to myself, oh, it's a terrible game. I definitely sank into it when I first played it. But when I say toxic and having fun at someone's expense, when it's a fan base, of course. Oh, I forget. When it's a fan base that's being toxic, it means that something that's happening is never going to be enough. And let me tell you, there's been quite a few times. For example, Overwatch. There was a while when like the last 3 characters that came out in 2 were just never good, basically. Oh, that was cool. But and because of that, they just stopped making characters for like it was a hiatus of characters, I think, because they're like, oh, we're going to reevaluate some of them, change them around. The scorched earth method of toxic fans. We're getting a little off topic. Another thing to consider is toxic fans in competitive versus non-competitive. Fortnite had a couple of toxic players because they were people who, when you saw them, you knew you were gonna lose. Like the person who had the John Wick skin, who just, like, you can't get past them. And they only play non-ranked matches or casual, and they'll only go after noobs. And it's annoying. It's annoying, and all you want to do is just like, hey, like, why can't I just play a casual game? Why aren't you playing ranked? Why aren't you playing with friends, most of all? Another thing to consider is that when you're toxic to everyone, even your own team, of course. I personally experienced quite a couple mofos on Fortnite who would just leave the squad and go do their own thing, and basically never helped out. There was one instance that was kind of funny. I basically was going to do the missile cheat where you ride a missile, but this one guy purposely asked me to do it in the opposite direction, and I was like, no, we're going this way. And he like started like yelling at me, and I was like, listen, I can't stay with the team, I gotta go. And I was like, alright, fine. I know it sounds stupid, but I got kind of bullied into doing it. He said like, listen, if you put me on this side, I'm gonna wrap around and I'll come back to this one. And I was like, I mean, like, I have no choice, so okay. And that's all I could do. I'm trying to remember which one was good. Oh no. These always went badly for me. Can a game be toxic? Well, of course, yes. I hate that one. A game's toxic when it doesn't let you have fun. Dark Souls is toxic, but it's fun toxic. Like, its shtick is being toxic. If Plants vs. Zombies had an unbeatable portion of the game it wouldn't be fun because you're not in this game to challenge yourself. On the other hand, like if Dark Souls added another swamp, fans wouldn't see. They just like talk about it for a while. Oh, you're dead. This is not going to be. Okay. It's an all-star, that's cool. Oh, I forgot that's like you could get revived. Right. Anywho. Yeah, this isn't toxic. This is just me only playing by myself, so like there's basically no way for me to win. I just needed a safe space to play, essentially. Yeah. Oh well. I think I have a lot more than just one KO thing. If I was smart, I would have played a cactus, but like getting off topic. This isn't toxic. This is like if you play a game by yourself, sometimes there's really no choice in terms of, oh, I'm gonna have fun and be the best player on the team. And no. And look, I have a ton of team retries, of course. I'm just gonna use them because I don't play the game heavily enough that like I. What? Oh, okay. Right. So let's talk more. Toxic games. Like I said, Dark Souls is purposely toxic, but if your shtick is not being toxic, then no, there's gonna be a couple of problems. Oh, it restarts the entire thing. That's great. Back in the old days, you'd use cheats like, I think there was an all-star cheat, but that's for all-stars, and this isn't multiplayer. Oh dang, I forgot how much damage this stupid, thing does. So I gotta actually think for this portion. When I think of, oh my gosh, this is a lot right now. See this guy right here? He is being toxic, and that's okay. I expect him to. He's the hardest boss in the game, right? Man, we're just gonna do more of it. Anywho, this brings me back. Okay. Yeah, alright, back to it. Alright, so toxic people on the team who don't want to be a healer. Like I said, like we're not doing this specifically to play Plants vs Zombies. We're just talking. Anywho, when I think someone indirectly toxic, I think immediately of Overwatch because there was a lot of problems with team coordination. Usually when someone's like, I don't want to play this way, I want to play my way, that's toxic, yes, but we need to admire what it means to be professional. Well, yes, we love to say that someone's being toxic because they want to play their way. How good are you? Be honest. If you go into Overwatch and you get 2 kills max, are you worth protecting? And that's nothing negative, it really isn't, but I've definitely played PUBG matches where I've had to agree with how terrible I've been. Definitely. Now, one thing I can't agree with is the idea that everyone plays their best way. Especially if you play random, you gotta deal with the fact that sometimes your teams are not meant to be. I barely ever play squads in Fortnite, and it's not because I don't like it, but because, well, for one, I can't talk on, for one, if I play squads, I can't be shown playing squads unless I literally tell everyone, shut up, I'm doing a video. But, the reason why is because when I played Fortnite earlier in the days, everyone was new, but when I play now, there's always that one veteran who's way better than me. And not that that's not fun, there are definitely times when that's very fun. Oh, are you kidding me? Yes, there are definitely times when I'll just be like, yeah. like, oh, this guy can literally do all the work for me, and like, or like we work well because he knows how to play. Like, yeah. But what is this gonna do? Yeah, okay. Right. So when you're playing with someone better than you, sometimes you need to sacrifice that. That's just my honest opinion. Sometimes it's not about. We're pretending like every person has the potential to be toxic. That's not true. It's possible that you're just not working well as a team, and you can use that dog, you can use that scapegoat, but especially in Overwatch, some people just aren't meant to play together. When I played PvZ, I was kind of a team guy, and that's because I only played gardens and graveyards. So what I usually ended up doing is playing a chemist or a scientist, a healing person, and kind of just rushing the field and healing everyone. I'm not being a non-toxic character. I'm not being like, oh, I'm playing more wholesome than everyone. I was just doing my job. My job as a healing a healing character. And yeah, like it's a little it's a little unfair for me to say like, oh, people who don't do it are bad, because there are ways to play the chemist in the game, who's like the best scientist, and do really well. So before we say anyone's not or is toxic, it's not a factor all the time. I'm not always going against someone like that. This is not better. Yeah, I stand by that statement. Oh, and in case you didn't know, this is Neon Abyss. It's on Game Pass if you want to play it. Pretty good, but you know, it's kind of a deep dive, so prepare yourselves. Okay. So, one thing I enjoy about toxic characters, however, is that some games are based around them. Let's direct our attention to Team Fortress 2, ladies and gentlemen, the game that is built off of toxicity. Multiple achievements involve being toxic to other players. There's, in fact, an achievement where you get it via throwing a cigarette. No, wait, no. I think it's throwing a cigarette and taking a picture of someone and sending it to someone after you kill them as a spy, if I'm correct. And that's just edgelord level stuff, right? Right? I mean, like, you just really wanted to make. And, like, there's an achievement for it. But in the game, it's so encouraged. It's such a community that when a game is that much of a community, it indulges human behavior of not acting super nice. When people get grief in Team Fortress 2, they are happy because it's the way you play. If anything, it's better because it's been having a bit of a robot problem. I think they cleared it up, but from what I remember, there was some circumstances they didn't like. But yeah, there's that. There's the dominated achievement where you cause the player to leave the game after beating them so many times. And like I said, that's just like so much. Like to do that in say like a game like Fortnite or Overwatch wouldn't even stand for them. Like, you see what I mean? The games operate off of the game itself, but some games operate off of human nature. Besides Metal Gear Solid jokes that you're gonna make, that's the truth. Some games indulge in the comedic effect that toxic players have, because if it's not toxic, it's more comedic playing. Like you have a medic character that refuses to heal, but is really good in combat. Like that's more funny than it is toxic. And you could argue like if they were bad, then they're just bad. But that's just them not being a good player. Maybe they're just not good. When I played Team Fortress on my friend's PC because I don't have a PC. I remember being like, what did I say? I only played the spy, and he said I was terrible. For one, he said I was terrible. He was like, "You're terrible at this." Like I checked the bottom chat, and it said like, "Who's the spy? We need to kick him." And I looked at them and I said, "Do you want to play like a round of spy so that like they don't like congregate?" And he was like, "Okay, sure." And I later played an engineer, which is crazy because when you play an engineer and you do badly, you get kicked. But like I said, I wasn't bad. Oh no, I have a grenade. I was bad. I wasn't playing correctly. And that's justification for people saying I'm toxic, but like I said, sometimes you need to take apart the player and say, are they playing well? No. Are they doing it on purpose? No. Well, then they're just not doing well. Um, hold on. Oh, this one's easy. Yeah. What else is there? Toxic communities, not just players. Toxic communities. There was a game called Vampire Bloodlines. If you don't know what it is, this amazing YouTube that I referenced in the last video called Willocracy. No, not in the last video. I think I've talked about it. This guy named Willocracy who does like older boomer RPGs. I'm not making fun of him. Like he says boomer RPGs as descriptions. But essentially it's like vampires if they ruled the world in early 2000s, which is cool in my opinion. But there are these two mods that are the unofficial patch to the game. Drugs patch and then the true patch. The drugs patch, I think it's drugs patch, yeah, was this patch made by this guy who was kind of a jerk. No, he was just straight up a jerk. Like if you access the website from different places, there were like it would purposely show stuff to you that like was just mean. And also there was the problem that like it was half a patch and half of it was like a community. And then there was the other one which was mocked because it restored too much content. And the community, the toxic community, was the argument that the first guy had restored too much content. He had put too many items in the game. Like he restored like missions that were bad. And whereas the other one was more toxic because he was directly toxic. Indirect, direct. And I prefer indirect. I prefer someone who is not being a good medic as to someone yelling at my ear that I suck. So that's an example of community-based toxicity. A whole group of people who were on two different sides. Just to clear up, however, the unofficial patch is much better and now has an option to get rid of some content. But like I said, at the time, there was a little bit of like, oh, it's better to have the restored full access in it, which is actually a problem that New Vegas and other games have. I think that if you restore too much content in New Vegas, it kind of becomes a different game, especially if it's Legion stuff. Like you barely see it. Okay, long story short, I'm not explaining the plot of Vegas in this game. I swear I won't. But there's a faction in the game that some people like basically wanted to resonate with, but they couldn't because you can't because there's not enough content. So people will just like put stuff in it. But yes, okay. Right. Where am I going with this? Right. When a group of people justify putting part of a game in it for their own expense, it's toxic. When people say we want 15 different Legion outposts because there's so many NCR outposts, it's kind of stinky because like there is none in the game because Legion are actually very far from their territory. I'm not explaining the lore, but long story short, some people want to add so much lore that it's exhausting for the other factions. The same thing happens for like another faction called the Enclave, where people will be like, "Oh, they should be in the game," and it's like that makes no sense. The Enclave is basically died out. To add them in like that would just be lame. The whole point is really just to show them it's like a losing side anyway. But right, toxic communities. When a community bands together, I previously made a joke about the movie Heavy Metal and how if you listen to fools, the mob rules, and we pretended to dissect the quote like a smart person when in reality we were just kind of making fun of it. But when you listen to fools, the mob rules. When you listen to someone so-and-so doing this, then the mob of individuals with not great intelligence rules. That's what that is. And like, I'm not calling any actual communities out. Like, no. Like, I treasure every Fallout community like a brother. But what I'm saying is what usually happens in a game that's story based is people grab their own factions and are like, we want more of this and we want more of this. It's like, well, if you want more of this, you're gonna want more of the other guy. Like, if you want more Legion outposts, you need more NCR troops, because if there were that many Legion in the game, there it would be like basically an invasion, essentially. So, like I said, like, I'm not against the idea of adding another fort for one faction in a game, but I'm against solely putting it in just to make a community feel better. Unless, of course, it's just like a silly mod, in which case, whatever. I guess if you wanted to, you could play a, I guess it would be called like Super Legion version of Fallout, where like they're in control, which would be kind of cool. Hold on. Let's see what we got here. You know, what's another? I'm trying to keep talking because I don't want to end it here. Yeah. Well, another thing that that you need to understand about a toxic player. We've already established the basic of it. So a toxic player is someone who has fun at someone else's expense, and that's not good. But some games, the whole point is to basically be SNL comedians, make fun of everything, and that's okay. But then some games take it to the next level and are based around that. Like, some of them are basically griefing you. But what does it mean to be a game that's anti-toxic? What do games do to counteract this? Well, games like Fortnite, Overwatch, very like mass appealing games that don't want anything except their own game being the factor. Like, if you're doing something, you can get banned or your account gets destroyed. And in some instances, that can like destroy accounts and like ruin everything. One of my friends had a problem where, like, because it looked like they had an item that's basically hacking the game, they had their account just deleted, and they were like, "Oh, I lost everything," and like it took a while for me to like convince myself to play the game again. But am I saying that it's possible for a game to become so anti-toxic it is toxic? Yes, I am. If a game calls itself out saying, "Oh my gosh, you can only play us and have no community banter," basically, it's a little too much. A game, Fallout 76 has a mule trade. I'm gonna admit this, I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for it, but I used to be involved in the Fallout 76 item mule trade. Basically speaking, some people, that was terrible, some people would start new accounts and wanted their old stuff. So what they would do is they needed a third party besides themselves to go to their old character, take the stuff, and bring it to them. In exchange, you would get caps, like the game currency. Nowadays, I think you can get the caps 18 different ways, so it doesn't really matter. But at the time, it was really fun. I thought I was like a cartel member. It was funny. I'd be like, here's that legendary thing. It was so fun. But right. Imagine if the game like punished you for that. Like, if you try to bring a weapon around a character like too many times in one day, it would delete the weapon. It kind of would defeat the purpose of the community of Fallout 76. And, well, not as many people think. Actually, I think a good amount play it. The whole point of Fallout is that you're in the wasteland trying to survive, and you know what? Some of that can involve passing something to something else. You can say that those two characters, role-playing wise, are brothers, and you can have reasons for it. But if the game was pretentious enough, which it's not, it as of now has done nothing in terms of it, it would be toxic in it saying that no, we don't want you to pass around weapons like candy, because items shouldn't be the focus of a game, unless of course like they're abusive. Like, if there was a weapon that one-shotted everything, of course. I mean, like, oh no, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh no, I would never use it. I probably used it for the amount of time it was patched. It wasn't until it was patched, but you know, yeah. Why would I want that? Why did I take that? Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm thankful they haven't, and I personally like the idea of like passing around weapons, but some games are anti-toxic enough that like they refuse the idea. Seed of a Stone. I always forget which one of these do which. Yeah, that's terrible. And look, there's that. Okay. So, let's just go back. Yeah, right here. So to round off a anti-toxic game, it's enough that it doesn't want you to play anything except the game. Can you be toxic to just a game? Yes, you can. Allow me to introduce you to the newest Zelda game. In the newest Zelda game, you have the ability to cheat by basically using the like floating bricks in the game, like airplanes. And it's toxic to the game because you can skip ahead to areas you're not supposed to be in, essentially. And I'm all for it. It's awesome. And I think the game is all for it, if I'm correct. Which is great. That's awesome. The only issue is if they fixed it, it would kind of be stinky. But no, like if you're toxic to a game, it means that you're having fun at the gameplay expense. I know it sounds crazy, but like imagine if a game wants you to get from A to B, right? So you try, you go there, and you do the objectives, and you would do the objectives, but instead you skip all the objectives because you know a glitch. Like you run into a wall, and it pushes you out in this one area. Some games encourage this, encourage you abusing the mechanics, and it's not even toxic at that point. At that point, it's just a mechanic. If a game is sentient enough, it just won't care. Allow me to introduce you to Resident Evil 4. In Resident Evil 4, if you have the rocket launcher, before you get explosives that are necessary to blow up a gate, then you can just skip an entire section of the game. And the game doesn't like beat around the bush like, oh, I can't use this here. That'd be stupid. Like no, like Leon can just pull out a rocket launcher, blow something up, and bam, you got it. And like you could argue like, oh, that's like kind of toxic to the game because you're kind of skipping mechanics. It's like no, the game encourages it. So some games like a toxic relationship. That is a great metaphor. Oh, that's perfect. Sometimes a game or a player or a community likes to be toxic. As much as I slightly complain about Fallout's modding community, it is a very beneficial thing. Without Fallout New Vegas's community stating that they desperately want new content, or Fallout 4, or 1 and 2 for that matter, there would be almost none. They would just be like cosmetic mods that just make you look cooler. Fallout New California, Fallout Sonora, Fallout Resurrection. These games were made because people didn't like that one part of the game was getting too much like another part of the game, and so they made their own. And is it technically toxic that these people made games that were specifically by their design? Yes, a little bit, but it's much better than them screaming online. Sometimes having a community of people stand around and complain about one aspect leads to not the mob being fools, but to a amazing group project. Like imagine if the popular girl was assigned with the emo kid, and they made like a robot for their project that was miraculously good. That's what I'm saying. Putting something toxic together and yielding a beneficial result. That's what a lot of mods of the game were. And when you don't give the players agency, like certain multiplayer games, like you can't make an Overwatch mod. I mean, like I think there are certain ways to play the game like that, but you can't if you're playing it on any other console. No, you can't do that. Then. I'm not narc games. I'm just saying that like I always hate this characters. I'm saying that it sometimes pays to let people express themselves, because isn't art people being toxic toward reality, or I guess appreciating it? Sometimes I tried making a good metaphor, but what I'm saying is sometimes it pays to let the fans take things into their own hands. when the first engines for a lot of RPGs came out, a lot of people just went crazy with them. From what I remember, the dev team that made that made Stalker, the popular like the popular Slav off game that takes place in Ukraine, it was made because the development team that made it basically used it wasn't, what was it? I forget the name of the game, but they used a game and then they like copy off of it. I think Wolocracy said this, but and they made a version of it that it was copyrighted because like it was basically a clone of the other. But from there, they went on to make their own games because they're like, okay, if we can't make that, we'll make our own. And that's where Stalker, the first Stalker, came from. Without people saying we want our own kind of game, we wouldn't have Stalker and we wouldn't have Metro because Metro was made by a portion of the dev team from Stalker. So yeah. Actually, let me think about one last thing. Toxic development teams, is that a thing? Not really. I mean, like, I guess that just leads to like a poor game. There's been like toxic like rivalry between dev teams, which actually is represented in a couple of Boomer RPGs, where like there'll be a character that represents another person IRL, and that's not toxic. That's more like feuding, and it's usually funny because it's usually funny because in the end people kind of just laugh about it, like, oh, we made this because we were having troubles with this, but like in the end we're all just like developers and such and such. What is this? That's awesome. Okay, anywho, let's wrap things up because we have like, oh, okay, not that much time. Toxic. We talked about toxic community. We talked about toxic players. We talked about toxic games. We talked about how toxic can essentially lead to art. What is the opposite of toxic? What does it mean to be... The opposite of toxic is healthy, I guess. What is a healthy player? Someone who plays, like, let's use a staple game, like Rainbow Six Siege. Say you're playing Doc. A healthy player makes sure to check on every player and figure out if they need help, and make sure to look for who needs the next med hit. This person also makes sure to use their correct weapon, which I think would be like the automatic pistol that Doc uses. And they, after healing everyone and getting everyone to full health, would correctly navigate the area to play like a good player. So it would involve playing well, doing your job, and knowing enough about the game. A healthy player is an informed player, a good player, and a correct player. If we add the opposite, which is someone who doesn't know anything about the game, which really doesn't affect toxicity. Like I said, toxicity makes me sound like I'm like pompous, but it doesn't affect toxicity. A good player, which like I said doesn't really affect toxicity. Well, a good as in like purposely good. I think that's more important, honestly. The purposes. Are you purposely ignoring things? Like if you're a doc and you're just like running through and like you purposely shoot someone with a pistol, that's just you not being misinformed. It's more or less you being terrible at the game because you think it's funny to shoot people instead of heal them, I guess. I've heard of some people, I mean, like, it can happen by accident, but if it happens twice, it's not by accident, is the ruling for doc players. Hold on. So yeah, a healthy player is someone who does everything right. I don't like a healthy player. That's basically a veteran. Someone who rolls into a game and knows everything. And that's cool, it's cool. But I'm not like... Sometimes it's important to remember the human aspect, I guess. You could argue that you could just get an AI to play for you in that case, right? Oh boy, I don't want to have that conversation. James Cameron like made a tweet saying like, oh, I warned you guys. And I was like, bro. If they're gonna make an evil AI, they're gonna have to just make a good one. It's like it's like making a shield to a sword. Or at least that's as optimistic as I can make it. I think we're getting off the point. A AI. I was literally just about to say AI for no reason, even though I literally said I'm really focusing on this. Right. So, a healthy teammate, a healthy player in terms of a game respects the game, does not cut corners. But some games are meant to cut corners. Even if you played Resident Evil 4 and decided to go in and decided not to use the rocket launcher, even though you had it, it's not that it's kind of lame. If anything, like you're like, oh, I'm not gonna do it. Like I want to embrace the portion of the game again. It's like you already played it, and didn't you get like all the achievements for it? And it'd be like, no. That would be mean toward the game dev. It's like they purposely let you do it. If anything, it's helpful and awesome because it means that you don't have to replay this every billion times. It's like, no. Like it's the Boy Scout equivalent. A non-toxic player is someone who is in the good zone, but a anti-toxic player is someone who's a Boy Scout. Someone who quite literally is just like, oh, I would never do this because you're responsible. It's like, I mean, that's the whole point of the game. Like, in Fallout New Vegas, there's a glitch. I know about a lot about New Vegas, but if you play it on console, or some other, it might work on PC too. Basically, you hotkey ammo, and then you assign it like it's special ammo. So you can assign like 5mm ammo to a like a grenade rifle, and it'll come out as grenades. But is this toxic, or is it like glitching? You could say it's toxic because they probably didn't want you to do that, but if they've left it in all this time, there's probably no point. I mean, like, I still do it whenever I get bored or like I'm just doing a run through. I honestly should have showed it on my last stream, but I just forgot about it because I haven't played it so long. But a Boy Scout would be like, I would never do that. I need to only have ammo for this. A role-playing person would probably argue that's a good idea to not do that. But like I said, like, I'm not saying don't be a Boy Scout, because literally, like, me saying don't be too good is just cringe. But I am saying, if you're playing, like, a game that says, like, if a game's holding the door open for you, like Resident Evil 4, or Resident Evil 7 does that. Actually, Resident Evil 8 does that, too. Yeah, a lot of Resident Evil games love to handhold you on the second run-through. On the first run-through, it's all up to you, but, yeah, no, a lot of them kind of are just like, yeah, if you have this item, you can just go. But if a game handholds you on purpose, like, not handhold, more like takes your hand romantically, like, oh, you thought you'd have to do that part of the mission again? Don't worry, I got you. And you're just like, no need, I will go through this. It's more mean than it is you being cool. That's just facts. Maybe I should just cut out the whole, PvC section. It was kind of sporadic anyway. Nah, I'll leave it in. There you go. Okay. I mean, we apply toxic to the gamer community. That's one. I guess that'll be our staple for this. What does it mean to a gamer? We've already said that it applies to a player, community, and a game, which it means that it has fun at your own at someone else's expense. Game card. Move this eye. Cool. Right. But what does it mean? Gameplay. What are we saying? If you're toxic to a, what is the broad strokes perspective? Because we can't say that a game being toxic is having fun at your own expense, because a game does not have fun. Uses you at your own expense. Forces you at your own expense. Makes you do this at your own expense. Let me think about this. Where I can't. Oh, I hate this room. Okay, whatever. Well, it's gonna be hard to talk over this. Now, arguably speaking, I could say that I don't like toxic in a multiplayer game, but a game like Team Fortress 2 relies on this. So, am I saying that it's toxic, or am I saying that it's just being quirky? like I've said, I'm quirky in streams, but what I mean by that is I'm being interesting and going off the books on something. Team Fortress 2 is also going off the books. It's doing something that other games don't do. It's allowing you to play your own character. And that's not toxic, that's just player agency, which is fine and encouraged. So it's not that it's not toxic, we're saying that it's a playground. You can't be toxic while you're playing tag. Your job is to go after someone. Your job is to ruthlessly run after your friends and make sure they get tagged and they have to suffer with the fact that they're running around also, right? So we should say that's what the game is. That's what a non-toxic game is. It allows you to play without being angry at you. Doom Eternal is a game that is okay with you running through like a maniac, and if anything encourages glitches because parts of the game you can't get through. It's okay to run after demons using exploits because they're demons and your job is to have fun. Granted, you using the game and abusing it and just cutting through gallons of content is unfun, because it's not. If you complete a game in 5 seconds, are you really enjoying it? So I guess if we apply that to the other side, someone being toxic means that they're not. To be toxic means you're preventing fun. That must be what it means. So okay, I kind of like that definition. A toxic player, game, or community prevents fun. And when I mean community, it prevents fun because it ruins an aspect because it focuses on another. Which, like I said, is fine as long as it makes sense and it doesn't single out other games. So yeah, toxic is that's what that means. It means that you single out fun for a reason. We haven't defined a reason, but a reason. I was kind of hoping I'd die so that like it would end here, but now I have to keep talking. Hey, God of Trolls, that's cool. So like we're talking about trolls. Ah, okay. A troll. We can talk about what that is. A troll is someone who is trolling you, being mean to you, blah 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 blah. They're toxic by using the game, but they use the game. Like someone abuses like the Rainbow Six Siege thing, that's trolling. That's using the game's aspect in the way that it makes it unfun for someone else. And a newbie would have no idea what's going on. I do remember playing with someone, him being like, how is he shooting us? And I had to explain to him that there's a window where if you run at it, someone has the ability to shoot at you, even if it's like the beginning of the game. And he was like, that makes no sense. Why would someone do that? And I was like, I know. Granted, let's start talking games, not just toxic. What games are toxic and what games are not toxic? We already said Dark Souls is toxic, but it makes sense. The game is hard. It's supposed to be. Fallout's not toxic. Its community is slightly toxic, but like, it's fun toxic, where like every now and then someone gets puffed up and up that they make an insanely complicated mod. Like my favorite one's probably Resurrection, because the guy who made it said, or the community who made it, I'm not sure if it probably wasn't one guy, but he basically wanted a second Fallout 1. I'm gonna use other examples. I promise I won't just be using Fallout. I'm so sorry. Long story short, the first game is more dark than the second, and he wanted a darker, like, more linear game. And so, yeah, he made that. It's like a sequel to Fallout. Is it a sequel? I'm trying to remember the timeline. No, I think it's a. Sorry, I haven't played it in a little bit, but I'm not gonna spoil it. It's a very fun game. If you have a PC and the ability to like mess with it, and like I would highly recommend Fallout Resurrection. It's pretty good. It also has very good combat scenarios. But right, we're getting off track. Overwatch isn't toxic. It's toxic in the I think there's like a lot of price problems with like you need to buy fun stuff. If I don't say I don't really care about this, but some people will be angered about the fact that like certain things you can buy in a game that improve things, but you shouldn't be able to. That shouldn't be an aspect of the game if it's multiplayer. Everyone should have a fighting chance. And 76 had that problem. There I go, talking about Fallout again. But in 6 Siege, that was never a problem. And it's weird because I always expected them down the line to put out like a skin with a terrible hitbox, but no, like honestly, the game's been pretty clean with that kind of thing. Maybe we should talk about things that can be toxic. Is it toxic to rage quit? Depending on the team. I rage quit in Clash Royale a lot. That's a mobile game. I rage quit in that all the time. I mean, like, I don't rage quit enough that, like, I'm not saying that what I do is I, get angry if I'm, well, I mean, I rage quit in that game. I don't play it anymore because of that, I'm so angry, but, what I'm saying is that if you leave a game because it's so difficult you're not having fun, that's fine. If you're leaving because everyone's having fun and you're not, and in order to shift that, they need to be not having fun, that's very different. But no, I think a lot of people get narked on for like, you can't leave a ranked match that's terrible. Like, no, of course, you're a human being. You have the ability to say, this isn't fun anymore. Isn't that the meme? Like, leave a match and you're like, oh, this isn't fun anymore, and people are like, who cares? Like, you gotta stay for the ranked thing. And people are like, you don't have to stay for anything. It's a game. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, remember, it's just a game. Maybe one day I'll do game stream and I'll just like talk. You know, that'd be funny. Just a rant. I guess I kind of want to do a more serious tone. I make a Fallout 4 playthrough, but as of now, it's just really more a project. I'm not forcing people to play it. Wait, what's this? And what's mini radar? Anywho, right. Honestly, maybe I should end here. I don't want to waste time. You know what? Yeah. I'm gonna admit something. I thought that this was going to be the next day. I thought I was going to be talking about this the next day, and I was gonna like spend the night researching. I know it sounds weird, researching toxicity. I was gonna look through articles on certain events that happened in certain games, like Overwatch, with it kind of abusing its community when it switched from 1 to 2. And then I was gonna look into the mule trade of 76, but no. Lessons to be learned. If a game is more multiplayer based, the toxicity is amongst playing the game and abusing techniques, whereas in a story RPG, it's more or less you abusing the mechanics and skipping things that developers took years to make. And of course, not everything is a toxic or non-toxic thing. Sometimes people are just bad at a game and you gotta cut them some slack. If you're on a squad in Fortnite and some guy misses 15 shots and he does that thing that noobs do when they do a circle and they have no idea what's going on, just tell him to sit on the side and spray fire to anyone who runs up. Sometimes the most non-toxic thing you can do is accept that people aren't on your level or you aren't on their level. Like always, these game philosophies are fairly scripted, and we'll be doing a little bit more of them. Our next topic, not known. If you want to comment and say what you would like me to talk about, of course, I highly encourage that. I would love to talk about something like a theme in a game, or maybe aesthetic-based something like what makes these type of games and what makes an RPG. Or you could do the same thing, you could do something more meta. Really, anything, and I will look into it and actually research it. This one was not as researched at all, but we had fun with it, didn't we? So yeah, I hope you have a great night, and I apologize for switching games, but I did not want to, spit in someone's ear about this and have midstream someone just yell at me and have us be like, what? I'm sorry, I just want to explain philosophy, man. So yeah, enjoy, Have a wonderful day, and like always, voice act out as soon as I end the stream. Bye. Fallout video probably next. Hope Fortnite if you'd like. Leaving comments if you want a specific video. Goodbye.